less than optimal pregnancy increases the proclivity for aggression per se, or decreases the probability that the child will be able to learn to control it?
Well,
is there any data on that? No, it's a hard distinction to make.
No, it's a very hard distinction. No, there's not clear data on that. I think the approach to getting closer to understanding exactly what's happening is when we are using a prevention approach, an experiment in terms of prevention, and maybe it's time to introduce this approach. Part of the studies that I've been doing are longitudinal studies where we simply follow thousands of families from pregnancy until the children's adult life. But a more interesting approach is, but more difficult, is experimental interventions. So in those experimental interventions, researchers think up of a way of treating the problem, of preventing the problem. And so we do an experiment, and there have been very nice experiments that have been done on helping young women who have behavior problems, emotional problems, and become pregnant, in helping them, supporting them during pregnancy and after birth, so that we can see to what extent we can help their children adjust better to their environment. And David Olds in the United States has been doing what I think are the best studies on the experimental studies on helping high-risk girls. And the results, he's been doing this for at least quarter of a century. And so we have data on the outcome, the long-term outcome for the children. And it's very clear that giving support to young pregnant women who have behavior, mental health problems is helping their children in the long run to adjust much better to their environment. And interestingly, the latest data that I've seen is showing that it's helping the baby girls more than helping the baby boys. So it may take at least two generations to be able to help the boys that would have major problems if their mothers were not being helped.
So what does the support that's offered to these mothers that works consist of? What needs to be done? And you also mentioned young women. So is one of the risk factors as well age of mother at birth?
Yes, well, yes, age of mother at birth, it has traditionally been an indicator that there is a problem. Girls.
And what about marital status? I mean, there's a huge body of literature, and again, correct me if I'm not up to date on this, indicating that on average, children without fathers, stable fathers, do much worse across a whole variety of indices than children with stable fathers. And now you could make a couple of cases for that. You could say that maybe the women that you're talking about are less likely to attract a stable partner. And so it isn't actually the presence of the man that's the determining factor. It's the fact that instability is more likely in a relationship if the young mother is unstable herself. What do you think about, and you're not seeing a role for fathers precisely in the developmental trajectory of aggression. So how do you comprehend the fatherlessness literature and the literature you're discussing? How do they fit together or not?
Part of the problem is assortative mating. And there's very interesting data coming out from, I think it's in Sweden, at least one of the Scandinavian countries, where it's very clear, because they have access to the data from the whole population. The data is pretty good, and there's clearly assortative mating among people who have psychological problems.
Okay, so you'll have to define that. You'll have to define that for everyone.
Okay.
So what's the phenomenon?
Assortative mating means that you are mating with a mate that has some of the same characteristics as you have. So if we are talking, say, for mental illness, if girls who have mental illness problems are more likely to have children with men who have mental illness problems. So
do you suppose that's a consequence of access across hierarchies? So if you're put into a socioeconomic rung in part because of your impaired mental ability, let's say, either cognitively or with regards to mental disorder, that the people that you're exposed to and likely to initiate a relationship are much more likely to be drawn from that strata.
Yes, well, there's assortative mating related to the social class that you are in. So people tend to mate with people from the same social class, but within a social class, there appears to be also assortative mating for having problems. And to a certain extent, it makes sense that if you're you have mental health problems, you are not attractive to someone who doesn't have problems. So people who don't have mental health problems tend to mate with people who don't have mental problems, and those who have mental health problems tend to mate with, this is not, we're talking about probabilities here.
Right. Well,